You know, when we think of Little House on the Prairie, we often picture the big moments. Laura chasing butterflies, Mary losing her sight, Charles standing strong in a blizzard. But sometimes, the quietest characters leave the softest and deepest imprints on our hearts, and no one fits that better than Carrie Ingalls, the youngest of the Ingalls girls. Always in, pigtails often in the background. Never saying much, but somehow always there, a presence, a giggle, a hand held by Ma. And behind that sweet little girl, two real-life sisters, Brenda Lee Turnbaugh and Wendy Turnbaugh, twins who shared the role with a grace, warmth, and authenticity that made Carrie feel not like a character, but like family. Because even though she didn't have long speeches or dramatic storylines, Carrie mattered. And Brenda and Wendy, they made sure of it. Today, I want to honor them, not just as child actors, but as two young girls who brought something rare to the screen, the pure, unfiltered soul of childhood. Let's start at the beginning. When the producers were casting for Carrie Ingalls, they needed a toddler, around 2 years old, someone small enough to be lifted by Charles, curious enough to wander off, and sweet enough to melt hearts with just a look. But here's the challenge. Working with very young children, especially in long filming days, is hard. They get tired, they get scared, they don't always follow directions. So the solution? Cast twins. That way, one could rest while the other worked. And so, Brenda Lee and Wendy Turnbaugh were cast, not just as actors, but as a team, and from the moment they stepped onto the set of Little House, something special happened. They didn't just play the same character, they became her. Not through lines, not through drama, but through presence. And what made them so good? It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't coached. It was real. Let's talk about their greatest talent, natural, childlike innocence. If you've ever watched a young child, truly watched, you know there's a kind of magic in the way they see the world. Everything is new. Everything is wonder, and Brenda and Wendy had that, not because they were acting, but because they were children. Their laughter wasn't forced, their curiosity wasn't faked. When Carrie reached for a butterfly, hid behind Ma's skirt, or giggled at Mr. Edwards' jokes, that was them. No scripts, no direction, just being kids. And that's why Carrie felt so real. She wasn't playing. A little sister. She was one. And that innocence, pure, gentle, untouched, made her instantly lovable. You didn't need her to speak. You could see it in her eyes, in the way she clung to Laura's hand, and how she tilted her head when Pa told a story. That wasn't acting, that was being, and in a show built on honesty, that was everything. Now, let's talk about something even more powerful. Subtle, emotional expression. Most child actors are asked to cry, smile, or react loudly. But Brenda and Wendy did something deeper. They expressed emotion, quietly. Think about it. Carrie didn't have many lines, but she lived through real moments. She saw her sister go blind. She endured harsh winters. She lost friends. And in those scenes, the camera would linger on her face, and you'd see it. A flicker of fear, a tear forming, a tiny hand reaching for comfort. And they did it, not with words, but with eyes, posture, breath. One episode stands out, when the family says goodbye to a friend who's moving away. Carrie doesn't say anything, but she watches from the porch. Her lip trembles. She turns and buries her face in Caroline's dress. And in that moment, you feel it. Not because of music, not because of dialogue, because of her. And that's a rare gift. To express depth without speaking. To show fear, joy, sadness, not with drama, but with truth. And these two little girls had it, because they weren't pretending, they were feeling. Now, here's something beautiful, something most people don't realize. Twin chemistry, Brenda Lee and Wendy weren't just playing the same role. They were sisters in real life. And that bond, it changed everything, because when one of them was on set, the other was nearby. They comforted each other, played together, even switched places so smoothly, most fans never noticed. And that connection, that twin energy, made Carrie feel like one person, not two actors taking turns. It wasn't jarring. It wasn't inconsistent. It was seamless, because they knew each other. They trusted each other, and they shared the same rhythm, and the crew loved them for it. MelissaGilbert once said, "I never thought of them as the twins, just thought of them as Carrie." And that says it all, because consistency isn't just about matching clothes or hair, it's about spirit, and they had the same one. Now, let's talk about something we rarely praise in child actors: adaptability. Imagine being just 2 or 3 years old, walking onto a busy film set. Lights, cameras, strangers, directors giving commands. And then, having to do it again. But this time, your sister did the scene yesterday, and now it's your turn. Could you match her? Could you remember where to stand? How to react? Could you stay calm? Brenda Lee and Wendy did. Again and again. They adapted to different directors, different moods, different episodes. And they kept Carrie consistent. In voice, in movement, in expression. And that's not easy. Even adult actors struggle with continuity. But these two little girls, they made it look effortless. And that's a sign of real talent, not flashiness, not big moments, but the quiet ability to show up, stay calm, and be true, no matter what. Now, let's talk about their legacy, because yes, Carrie was often a background character. She didn't have blindness arcs, she didn't fall in love. She didn't give speeches, but she was there, at every family dinner, every bedtime, prayer, every moment of joy and sorrow, and that matters. Because families aren't just made of the loud ones. They're made of the quiet ones too, the ones who sit on laps, who hold hands, who remind us that love isn't always spoken. Sometimes it's just present. And Brenda and Wendy gave us that. They didn't steal scenes. They didn't demand attention, but they made us feel. And isn't that what storytelling is about? Now, after Little House, they stepped away. No interviews, no reality shows, no attempts to stay in Hollywood. They grew up quietly, lived private lives, and stayed out of the spotlight. And honestly, I respect that, because they weren't chasing fame. They were just two little girls who got to live in Walnut Grove for a while, and they did it with grace. And today, fans still remember them, not for awards, not for headlines, but for the way Carrie used to run into Charles's arms, for the way she smiled when Laura told her a story, for the way she made us believe in the quiet magic of childhood, and that's a legacy. Because the best roles aren't always the biggest. Sometimes, they're the ones that make you whisper. I remember her. She felt like my little sister. She made the family complete. And that's what Brenda, Leah, and Wendy Turnbaugh gave us, not just a character, but a feeling of warmth, of home, of innocence preserved. The next time you watch Little House on the Prairie, and you see Carrie, pigtails bouncing, hand in hand with Ma, don't just see a background character, see the twin sisters who shared a role, who brought truth to silence, who showed us that even the smallest members of a family can carry its heart. Brenda Leah and Wendy Turnbaugh. Two girls. One name and a legacy of love that still whispers through the prairie wind. And if you listen closely, you can still hear it, a giggle, a laugh, A little voice saying, "Pa, can I come too?" And we smile, because she's still there, in every frame, in every memory, in the quietest, sweetest part of our hearts.